Now, let's move on to another critical issue for Turkey, Fatih Altaylı. As you know, he was arrested. They claimed he insulted the president. He was directly targeted by a presidential advisor, dragged from his home, brought to court, and jailed. Let's go back 250 years. There was a man named Charles Lynch in the Wild West. A farmer and cattle breeder. Despite not being a soldier, he became a militia colonel during the Civil War. Despite not being a lawyer, not even having the slightest education, he became a judge. Under the guise of protecting the state, he declared people traitors and hanged them. No trial, no evidence, no witnesses. If he suspected someone or just disliked them, that was enough. He'd imprison them, seize their property, start riots. If he felt like it, he'd hang people, from trees or bridges, whatever he wanted. No fair trial. The guilt or innocence of the people he executed was unknown. People were too scared to speak up, fearing they'd be next. This fake judge went down in history. His name gave birth to the term lynching. It became the symbol of lawlessness disguised as justice. A method of punishing people without any legal process. A label of a savage culture, lynch culture. Now, 250 years later, look at Turkey. If you ask me what the biggest damage the AKP era has done to this country is, I'd say it's this lynch culture. On pro-government TV channels, in newspaper columns, or social media. Just like in this case, they create their own courts, become their own prosecutors, their own judges, and carry out extrajudicial executions. Arrest him, jail her, they say. They put enormous pressure on real judges and prosecutors. They even target them. If things don't go their way, and the person they targeted is arrested, they celebrate like they've hung someone from a tree or bridge. Fatih Altaylı is the latest example. They're shouting with joy because they got him jailed. We're seeing it all on social media. But actually, Fatih Altaylı's arrest proves how two-faced politics in Turkey has become. It shows how the supposed principle of press freedom has been twisted to serve only one side, like a butcher's cleaver. Back in the day, when the AKP first came to power, Fatih Altaylı supported their policies. He even suggested Erdoğan should get the Nobel Peace Prize because of the Yes Anam plan in Cyprus, which was against Denktaş. At that time, the palace loved him. Their relationship was so close that they gave him a cat as a gift. This was even reported in the news. Yes, a cat. They loved him that much. Let's remember the late Levent Kırca, who we deeply respect. Fatih had him on as a guest once, and they had a heated argument about the Ergenekon trials and sycophantic journalism. Back then, because the palace and its followers hated Kırca, they defended Altaylı, praised him endlessly. But then Altaylı changed his views. Especially during his final years at Haberturk and after moving to YouTube, he began to harshly criticize AKP policies. Once a journalist who used to criticize CHP became one of the most pro-CHP voices. And suddenly, because he criticized our beloved leader, he was labeled an enemy. They targeted him, lynched him, and then claimed he insulted the president and got him arrested. If you praise the palace, they love you. If you criticize it, they ruin your life. That's how politics works in Turkey, complete hypocrisy. There's no such thing as press freedom. There's only press freedom if you applaud the government. Otherwise, forget about the courts. Now, I'm not saying Fatih Altaylı didn't write this or that. He's a journalist. His views may change. What I want to highlight is the fundamental problem of political double standards. Unfortunately, this two-faced attitude exists within the main opposition too. If you criticize Özgür Özel, he goes on Sazku TV and says, "Why is Yılmaz Özdil allowed to speak here? Silence him. He threatens, I'll shift gears, etc." But when Fatih Altaylı, who supports him, is jailed, what does he say? This is interference with press freedom. If you support him, it's press freedom. If you criticize him, silence him. So really, it doesn't matter what journalists write about AKP policies. What matters is whether you support Özgür Özel. That's the reality. For 20 years, you could have criticized AKP and suffered countless punishments for it, jail sentences and more. So, you've been sued more than 400 times, you've had millions in compensation claims against you, you were fired, remained unemployed for nearly 3 years, and none of that matters. What you did or said about the AKP doesn't matter. The only question is, do you support Özgür Özel? That's what counts. For example, look at CHP administrators. They stand by the owner of Halk TV, as they should. The owner of Halk TV is paying a price so journalism can be done freely. They've come down on him hard, issued arrest warrants and such. So, the CHP stands by him, rightly. But have you ever heard them mention the owner of Sözcü newspaper, who has gone through far worse, who has paid a much heavier price for independent journalism? No, you haven't. Do they ever mention the lawsuits filed against Sözcü? Not at all. Because every party, unfortunately, is trying to build its own loyal media network. That's the goal. Journalists who praise the CHP are embraced and celebrated by the party leadership, regardless of what they may have written about the AKP. Take Niyet Cenk, a symbol of patriotic, honest journalism. Just because he criticized the CHP, they didn't even bother to say, "Get well soon." His years of brave opposition to AKP policies are forgotten. Not a single word of support, just because he criticized the CHP. Why? Because for them, there is no such thing as honest journalism. They complain about pro-government media but want their own version of a loyal opposition media. Controlled opposition. One side wants a loyal media, the other wants a loyal opposing media. That's the sad reality. As a result, the media becomes entangled with politics. Media destroys media. Instead of being the people's journalists, they become the journalists of political parties or mayors. And since everyone watches the same few TV channels or reads the same papers, the public is easily manipulated. Journalists are criminalized. Commentary replaces facts. And once things are based on commentary, everything gets distorted, trimmed, twisted. Laws become open to interpretation. And when media doesn't do its job, citizens try to become journalists themselves on social media, and what they write gets twisted even more easily. Look, during the presidency of our dear leader, about 195,000 people have been investigated for insulting the president. Yes, 195,000. Out of these, 45,000 were put on trial, and 13,000 received prison sentences of various lengths. I'm one of the defendants in those cases. I even have another hearing this month. Last week, I got another notice saying I insulted the president. That's how it is. So what does this achieve? We're setting world records for prosecuting citizens and journalists. And what do we gain? Nothing but international disgrace for Turkey and its democracy. They say it's about protecting the president. But what they're really doing is writing themselves into history like this. You might say, well, if someone insults the president, of course there should be legal action. But do you know in which countries insulting the president is actually a crime? In all of Europe, it's only in Russia and Poland. Elsewhere, Iran, Egypt, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Jordan, Morocco, China, North Korea, Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam. In Africa, Uganda, Rwanda, Tanzania. In South America, Cuba, Venezuela. That's it. You claim to be teaching us about the rule of law, yet the concept of insulting the president only exists in countries with authoritarian regimes, where the rule of law is replaced by the supremacy of one man. Isn't Turkey ashamed of this? In Aydın, for example, a 13-year-old child was put on trial for insulting our dear leader. In Diyarbakir, a 12-year-old. In Manisa, Konya, 14-year-olds. They were each facing up to 4 years in prison. In Istanbul, a 78-year-old man was sentenced to 8 years in prison for insulting the president on social media. In Kütahya, a 90-year-old man supposedly insulted the president while chatting with friends in a coffeehouse. The prosecutor launched an investigation. Do you want a list of professions of those arrested for insulting the president? In Izmir, a music teacher. In Ankara, a translator. In Hatay and Giresun, doctors. In Bursa, a veterinarian. In Manisa, a lawyer. In Mughla, a real estate agent. In Denizli, a salesperson. In Tekirdağ, a driver. In Kokili, a construction worker. In Mersin, a cafe owner. In Antalya, a masseur. In Malatya, a chef. In Erzurum, an unemployed citizen. all arrested for insulting our dear leader. There are tens of thousands of Fatih Altaylı in Turkey, 195,000 to be exact. The situation has become so absurd, it's tragic. Let me give you a shocking example from Ankara, a long-distance bus headed to Burdur. The driver, trying to keep the bus clean, puts newspaper over the steps. Turns out the newspaper had a photo of the president. Some concerned citizen runs to the police, says, "They put our president's face underfoot." And the bus driver is taken to the police station for questioning. That's right, accused of insulting the president by putting a newspaper on the bus steps. Another example from Ankara. A father reports his own daughter to the police, claiming she insulted the president. She's taken to the station. During questioning, she says, "It's not me, my dad is the one who insults him." They both turned on each other. In Izmir, a man secretly records his wife cursing at the president while watching the news, and reports her to the police. When asked why he'd report his own wife, he says, "Even if it were my father, I'd do the same. I won't tolerate insults to our leader." Turns out the woman was divorcing him due to domestic violence, and this was his revenge. In Istanbul, a married engineer filed for divorce. Her husband, also an engineer, reports her, saying, "She insulted the president in a text message she sent me." The case went on for 2 years. People are reporting their daughters, fathers, spouses. Now we've added Fatih Altaylı to this mess. He might be the first journalist in history arrested for talking about Ottoman history. What did he say? He talked about the sultans. Did he lie? No. But because he insulted our dear ancestor, he was arrested. He might be the first journalist arrested for discussing Ottoman history. But really, this has nothing to do with press freedom. Everyone in the media and political circles knows that Fatih Altaylı was targeted because of the İkram İmamoğlu case. Fatih Altaylı is the most successful journalist on YouTube, with over 1.5 million subscribers. He gets the most views. They know they can't shut him up, but they thought maybe they could scare him. If he had nominated our dear leader for the Nobel Prize, like he once did, he'd still be writing for Hürriyet or hosting programs on pro-government TV. But instead, he nominated İkram İmamoğlu for president, and now he's out of every job, forced to broadcast on YouTube. There was no real insult in what he said. Everyone knows this. Even if there were, by law, it's not a jailable offense. But they said, "Oh, you love İmamoğlu so much? Go join him in Silivri prison." That's what this is about. Not law, not justice, not insults. We hope he'll be released soon. We stand by him. That's all for today. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I was going to talk about how Tourism Minister Mehmet Nuri Ersoy hosted Ahmet Hakan on a 35-meter yacht, but I'm out of time. I haven't forgotten. I'll cover that on both YouTube and in print. Yes, our tourism minister gave an interview from his yacht in Greece. If this were a joke, you'd say it was exaggerated. If even our tourism minister goes to Greece, why would tourists come here? I'll tell you all the details you won't forget on Friday, both on YouTube and on Sosku TV. Until then, don't forget to subscribe. And remember that old joke, no matter how much gas costs, it doesn't matter, I always buy 50 lira worth. To 4 lucky viewers who haven't subscribed yet, I'll be sending a 50 lira bottle of Black Sea natural gas. As they say, a good sycophant is the one who takes deep breaths when his master farts. If Iran cuts the gas, just open the bottle and inhale. See you Friday morning. Take care.